The backstage hallway at Paramount Studios felt like a battlefield on Thursday night, March 14th, 1991. Prince stood alone in his dressing room, hands trembling, sweat forming on his forehead, despite the air conditioning running at full blast. His purple suit was perfect. His hair was perfect. Everything about him looked controlled. But inside, a war was raging. In 15 minutes, he would walk onto the Arsenio Hall Show stage. 25 million people would be watching live, and Rick James would be sitting on that couch. The same Rick James who had changed Prince's life 9 years ago with a single conversation. The same Rick James who had betrayed every word of that conversation. The same Rick James Prince had been avoiding for almost a decade because seeing him hurt too much. Prince's road manager knocked softly. "Prince, sound check in 5 minutes. Rick's staying on the couch for your interview." Prince didn't respond. He was back in 1982, back at that American Music Awards after-party, back to the moment when Rick James had shown him something that seemed impossible now. Truth. January 25th, 1982. The Beverly Hilton ballroom was packed with music industry royalty. Rick James was untouchable that night. Super Freak had dominated radio for 6 months. His white fur coat, braided hair, and confidence made him look like he owned the room. And in many ways he did. Prince was 23, hungry, talented, but not yet famous. 1999 wouldn't drop for another 8 months. He was just another young artist trying to break through in an industry designed to consume people like him. Rick James noticed Prince standing alone near the bar, watching the room with calculating eyes. Something about the kid's intensity caught his attention. Not fake intensity, but real. The kind that came from someone who understood music was war, and only the ruthless survived. Rick walked over, drink in hand. "You're Prince, right? The kid from Minneapolis making weird funk?" Prince nodded, cautious. "I've heard your demos. You're talented, scary talented, but talent won't save you in this business." "What will?" Prince asked. Rick's expression changed. The character dropped for just a moment. Behind the fur coat and bravado was someone else. Someone tired. Someone who had seen too much. "Honesty," Rick said quietly, "but not the kind they want. Not confessional bullshit for magazines. Real honesty. The kind that shows up in your music. The kind that makes your art dangerous because it's actually true." Prince leaned forward, listening. "They're going to try to turn you into a product," Rick continued. "Package you, market you, make you digestible, and they'll make you rich doing it. But the price is you. The real you disappears. And once it's gone, little brother, it's almost impossible to get back. Then how do you survive? You build a character, something between you and the world, a mask they can interact with while you stay protected. But here's the trick. The character has to be close enough to truth that you don't lose yourself completely. It can't be a total lie, because total lies eat you from the inside." Prince absorbed every word like gospel. "Your music stays real," Rick said. "That's non-negotiable. The songs are where truth lives. But your image? That's your shield. Make it theatrical. Make it mysterious. Make it whatever you need to survive. Just never forget there's a difference between the shield and the person holding it." That conversation lasted 20 minutes. For Prince, it became a manifesto, a way to navigate fame without being destroyed by it. When they parted, Rick grabbed Prince's shoulder. "Stay real in the music, little brother. That's where it matters. That's where you'll survive." Prince believed him, built his entire career around that advice. And for 9 years, he watched Rick James do the exact opposite of everything he'd preached. By 1991, Rick James was unrecognizable. The super freak character wasn't a shield anymore. It had consumed him completely. The cocaine use wasn't recreational. It was constant, desperate, necessary just to maintain the image everyone expected. Prince watched it happen from a distance. Watched Rick's music become parody. Watched the performances become sketches. Watched interviews where Rick played the character so hard that the real person underneath was completely invisible. And it terrified Prince. Because if Rick James, the man who understood the game better than anyone, couldn't maintain the distinction between character and person, What chance did Prince have? Purple Rain had made Prince a superstar in 1984. The pressure to become a product, to let the machine package him, all of it came true. But Prince fought to keep his music dangerous, fought to stay real where it mattered. But watching Rick James dissolve felt like watching a preview of Prince's future, and that fear had been eating at him for years. March 14th, 1991. The Arsenio Hall Show was the biggest platform in late-night television for black artists. The energy was different. Young, electric, dangerous in ways other shows could never be. Rick James was booked to promote a comeback attempt. Prince was booked to discuss his latest project. Arsenio's producers thought it would be great television to have them on the couch together. Two funk legends, two generations, one conversation. Nobody expected a war. Rick went on first, walked out to Super Freak playing. The audience screamed. He wore the costume they expected: leather, fringe, braids. But up close under the stage lights, you could see something else. He looked older than 43, looked tired, looked like someone playing a role that had stopped being fun years ago. Arsenio kept the conversation light. Rick told the usual stories: wild touring tales, party anecdotes, the persona firmly in place. Everything designed to entertain, nothing designed to reveal. Prince watched from backstage on a monitor, his hands clenched into fists. 9 years of watching this. 9 years of betrayal. And now, Arsenio said, we have another legend. Ladies and gentlemen, Prince. The audience erupted. Prince walked out, not smiling, not performing, just walking with purpose. He wore a purple suit, perfectly tailored, but his face was intense in a way that made the energy shift. He shook Arsenio's hand, then turned to Rick James. Didn't sit down, just stood there looking at him. Can I ask you something, Rick? Right here, right now, in front of all these people. Rick's smile faltered. This wasn't planned. Sure, little brother, Rick said, the nickname carrying weight neither man had acknowledged in years. Ask me anything. The studio went dead silent. 25 million people watching at home leaned forward. Why did you lie to me? The question landed like a bomb. January 25th, 1982. Beverly Hilton. You told me to stay real in my music. You told me to build a character as a shield, but keep the person alive underneath. You told me the music is where truth lives. You told me that was how to survive. Rick's face went pale. I believed you, Prince continued, his voice getting stronger. I built my entire career around that advice. Fought to keep my music honest. Fought to stay real where it mattered. Because you told me that was the path. The audience was completely silent now. But you became the character. You let Super Freak swallow Rick James Johnson completely. There's nothing real left in your music. Nothing honest in your performances. You're just playing a role. And I've watched it for 9 years. Watched you betray every word you said to me, and I need to know why. Have you ever confronted someone who changed your life? Someone whose advice saved you, but whose actions betrayed everything they taught? Drop a comment below. Because this moment is about more than music. It's about what happens when mentors fail to live their own wisdom. Rick James stood there, the character crumbling in real time. Behind the braids and leather was a man who'd been running for a decade. Running from truth. Running from himself. You want to know why? Rick's voice was quiet but carried through the silent studio. You really want to know? Yes. Because it's easier, Rick said. Because being real is exhausting. Because fighting the machine every single day takes strength I don't have anymore. Because the cocaine helps me maintain the character. And the character is what pays the bills. The audience gasped. You didn't admit cocaine use on national television in 1991, but Rick James was dropping everything. You're 24 years younger than me, Rick continued, looking at Prince with grief in his eyes. You've got energy. You've got fire. You've got the strength to fight. I don't. Not anymore. I gave you the map because I believed it was right, and it is right. But I can't follow it myself. I'm too tired, too damaged, too far gone. Then get help, Prince said. Stop performing. Stop playing the character and figure out who Rick James Johnson actually is underneath. I don't know who that person is anymore, Rick said, and his voice broke. I wore the mask so long it fused to my face. The real me, that kid from Buffalo, died somewhere around 1985. Now there's just this, just the performer, just the shell. Prince's anger was dissolving into something else. Understanding maybe. Recognition. I'm sorry, Rick said, tears visible now. I'm sorry I gave you advice I couldn't follow. I'm sorry I became an example of what not to do. I'm sorry you've spent 9 years watching me fail while you succeeded. It was terrifying, Prince said quietly, because I kept thinking if Rick James can't maintain the distinction, how can I? If the man who understood the game better than anyone gets swallowed by it, what chance do I have? But you're stronger than me, Rick said. The fact that you're standing here calling me out proves it. I would never have had the courage to do this. That's the difference between us, little brother. You're brave. I'm just surviving. Arsenio Hall finally found his voice. Gentlemen, I think we need to pause. No, Prince said. We're not pausing. We're finishing this. He sat down next to Rick. Not confrontational anymore, just present. I didn't come here to destroy you, Prince said. I came here to understand, to figure out if what I'm doing, fighting to stay real, if it's actually possible long-term. Because watching you made me think maybe it's not. It's not temporary for you, Rick said. Look at your career. Look at your music. You've maintained it. You've fought. You've won battles I couldn't win. Don't let my failure make you doubt your success. But I'm terrified I'll become you, Prince said, and the vulnerability in that admission silenced the room again. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when I'm tired and worn down, I'm terrified I'll give up the fight. I'll become the character, and I'll turn into exactly what you warned me not to become. Rick reached over, put his hand on Prince's shoulder. You won't become me, Rick said, because you just did something I could never do. You confronted the thing you fear most. You stood in front of 25 million people and made yourself vulnerable. That's not who I am. That's who you are. And that person doesn't disappear. They sat in silence. The audience didn't applaud, just absorbed what they were witnessing. I need help, Rick said finally, looking at Arsenio, then at the camera. I'm a cocaine addict. I've been using for years. The character requires it now. I can't perform without it. And it's killing me, slowly, destroying whatever real person might still exist underneath. Rick, are you saying you want treatment? Arsenio asked. I'm saying I don't know how to stop, Rick said. I'm saying the machine I built has become a prison, and I don't know how to find my way back. Prince made a decision. Right there. Live. Come to Paisley Park, he said. Next week. Bring nothing. No entourage. No manager. No character. Just Rick James Johnson. And we'll figure it out together. We'll work on music that's real. We'll find the person underneath the performer. Why would you do that? Rick asked. After I betrayed you? Because you saved me 9 years ago, Prince said. Even if you couldn't save yourself. Because mentors don't have to be perfect to be valuable. Because I'd rather spend time trying to recover you than spend the next 20 years watching you disappear completely. Rick James started crying, real body-shaking sobs from someone who'd been holding it together for too long. The show went to commercial. As soon as the red light went off, Arsenio stood up, genuinely shaken. That was truth, Prince said quietly. That's what happens when you stop performing and start being real. The episode aired exactly as it happened. No edits, no cuts. 25 million people watched, and America didn't know what to do with it. Half the response was outrage. You don't admit drug addiction on television. You don't have conflict between guests. But the other half was gratitude. Desperate gratitude from people who'd been waiting to see something real on television. Rick James came to Paisley Park 3 days later. Showed up alone, carrying one bag, looking smaller than he'd seemed on television. They spent 2 weeks together, not recording, just talking. About fame, about survival, about how to stay human when the world wants you superhuman. Rick checked into treatment in April 1991. Stayed for 60 days. Came out different. Not healed. Addiction doesn't work that way. But awake. Committed to recovery in a way he hadn't been before. From 1991 to 2004, Rick and Prince maintained a friendship built on brutal honesty, monthly phone calls, occasional visits to Paisley Park, conversations about staying real, about fighting the character, about maintaining the distinction between image and self. Rick's music changed, not dramatically, but his later work had weight, had truth, had the honesty he'd stopped allowing himself in the 80s. When Rick James died on August 6, 2004, Prince spoke at his memorial service. 13 years ago, Rick James and I had a conversation on national television that changed both of our lives. I confronted him about betraying the advice he'd given me. And instead of getting defensive, he got real. He admitted his struggles. He acknowledged his addiction. He showed 25 million people what vulnerability looks like. That took more courage than any stage performance ever could. Rick James taught me twice. Once in 1982 when he gave me the map, and once in 1991 when he showed me that failure isn't final, that confrontation can lead to recovery, that being real, even when it's ugly, even when it hurts, is always better than pretending. The footage of that 1991 Arsenio Hall Show confrontation has been watched millions of times, but for Prince it was proof that the distinction Rick taught him in 1982 was possible, that you could stay real in the music, that you could fight the machine, that you could maintain the person even when the character was screaming to take over. Prince never forgot that night, never forgot what it felt like to risk everything for truth. Never forgot Rick James crying on that couch, mask fully removed, being human instead of performing. And every time Prince felt himself slipping, felt the character getting too comfortable, felt the machine pulling too hard, he remembered. Remembered Rick's warning, remembered his own fear of becoming that warning, remembered that the fight to stay real never ends, but it's always worth fighting. So what about you? What mask are you wearing? What character have you built that's starting to replace the real person underneath? Hit that subscribe button right now if this story reminded you that being real is harder than performing, but matters more than any character ever could. Share this with someone who needs permission to drop their mask. And comment below. Tell us about a time when someone's failure taught you more than their success ever could. Because that's what Rick James gave Prince. Not perfection, but honest struggle, real vulnerability, the courage to admit when the character wins, and the fight to recover the person underneath. That gift changed Prince's life, and it all started with one question on live television. Why did you lie to me? Sometimes the most important conversations are the ones that hurt the most. Sometimes confrontation is love. Rick James and Prince proved that on March 14th, 1991. And 25 million people witnessed truth win over performance. The mask always cracks eventually. The only question is whether you'll let the real person emerge or build a new mask on top of the broken one. Prince chose emergence. Rick James chose it too, 13 years too late, but just in time to matter. Now it's your turn.